All right, welcome to Real Spirituality, and today I'm discussing the Big Door Prize on Apple TV Plus. I watched the first 4 episodes, and I'm going to discuss them. I am going to use spoilers and talk about that, but I'm also going to talk pretty generally about Hollywood and faith and stories and how we think about them. So that's what I love to do. At Real Spirituality, we look at stories that resonate with the soul, and I love to connect evangelicals to great stories that resonate with the soul. I don't necessarily endorse all of them because not everybody can stomach the content quite the same way, and so just all the regular cautions are there. But the Big Door Prize is actually fairly clean. I mean, I have to say fairly because it's still Hollywood. There's still bad language and that sort of stuff. But the reason I wanted to stop and pause and have kind of a long form conversation via a video is because episode 4, we start to have overt theological themes that are being discussed. Some light theology, biblical philosophy is just kicking up as the priest is talking to the bartender at the start of episode 4. And the bartender is a skeptic towards the Bible. The Bible, to her, is a fantasy and has just characters that come out of nowhere and stuff like that. And later, the show's daughter, the main character's daughter, raises her moral objections to a particular story in Scripture. And so there's just right off the bat, like there's the Bible and theology being discussed, and in a way of like critical of the Bible. And so that's I think my conclusions might surprise some people. So just hang out, keep going. Let's keep going together, okay? A lot of times when we interact with a story, like particularly a Hollywood story, or a book that is secular or something, we feel like we have to make this moral judgment. Like it's is this conversation good or is it bad? Is it right or is it wrong? Is it accurate or is it inaccurate? And I want to encourage a different tact. So rather than kind of jump to that, like, oh, I need to label this as wrong or good or bad, I want to encourage a different tact, which is to just listen. And what we're listening for is the tone of society, because this is a secular production. This is Hollywood telling a story that matters to them. And it happens to be a fun story that we can enjoy and has an interesting and important theological conversation that we can learn about what society's thinking about right now. Okay? So in recent seasons of society, I believe evangelicals, myself included, we're all in this together, but we've become very passionate about the should-bes of society. The reality, the only should-be is Revelation 21 and 22. Which, if you don't know what I'm talking about there, Revelation 21:22 is a picture of a restored heaven and a restored earth, and all people are living in the presence of God with no more death, no more sadness, no more tears. The leaves of the tree of life for healing for the nations. It's this beautiful picture. I love, that's easily my favorite kind of like passage to sit and think about. It's a promise. It's a promise of the future. But we're not living in it today. The kingdom is not here yet. The kingdom is here in ways, but it is not fully here. And God's put us here today for a purpose. And it's not to just sit and dream about Revelation 21:22. It's to be surrounded, to do something, and in being surrounded by a culture that I personally feel alien to. And I say that partly because I think evangelicals are starting to feel that way too. And so we're having this weird response where we're trying to assert the should be of society. And so we tend to assert that should be across sort of the major pillars of society, governance and, the power structures of legislation and execution and courts, and then of media and stories being told and other forms of influence. And so we understand the future of Revelation 21:22, but we have the power. We long for some sort of power so that we can kind of magic wand society to look like what we think it should look like. But I just want to encourage you, God's going to do that. God's going to do that. We don't have to do that. But we have a purpose right here as part of what God's doing. And it involves being surrounded by society where we're living today. And what a critical piece of understanding that is understanding why we are in the world, and what do we do about it. So why we're in the world, like if you go back to Genesis 1 and 2, so I've got Revelation 21, 22 at the end of the Bible and Genesis 1 and 2 at the beginning. At the Genesis 1 and 2, God created Adam and Eve and in right relationship with him. So they were walking in the garden in the cool of the day together with God, and they were in right relationship with each other. So we've got the vertical relationship with God and the horizontal relationship with people, and everything was good until Genesis 3. We all know the story. Well, if you don't, I won't go into it, but don't feel bad if you don't. Sometimes I say things as if everybody should know, but then I realize not everybody does know, and it's not very kind of me to assume everybody knows. So feel free to ask a question in a comment or something. So being in the world has a lot to do with our relationship with God and our relationship with others. And too often, because now in Genesis 3, that both those dimensions broke, and we now have broken relationships with people and with God. And so when we end up in a conversation today here in contemporary America, I'm talking to Americans, I guess, we have this tendency that we want to find people who are like us, and that's normal. It's I would call it tribal, but there's something rudimentary and tribal about us, and that goes back to Genesis 11 and 10 and 11. But that there is something where we do want to find camaraderie because we want to be known by the people around us, and like we're aligned and we agree, we have agreement, and everybody does it. We all do it. It's perfectly normal. But it can't be the only thing we do, or else we end up sort of separating ourselves and becoming like a splinter group. There was a group actually in Jesus' time called the Essenes, and they did that. So they believed that the kingdom of God would come about if they went and became a separated community who was extremely holy. And they were in contrast to the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And they're not talked about much in Scripture because they're kind of offshoots, but they became a really important historical group because through the Essenes, we got the Dead Sea Scrolls. And really interesting, but I'm glad that they existed so that we could get the Dead Sea Scrolls, but I am, concerned, or I'm not promoting their philosophy of separation anyway, but I do think we tend to do that naturally, tribalism. And okay, so it's good though. So a healthy form of that is we find community that we can do pieces of life together with, where we know that we have camaraderie, but where we're still in this world where we are interacting with people who don't necessarily agree with us. And so when we encounter somebody who doesn't agree with us, we have a tendency, and that first tendency relates to tribalism, is to walk away and be like, I don't agree with you. I'm just going to go off with that person. And we try to assert the truth. Like, I disagree with you, and here's why, and this is where you're wrong. And let me tell you why I'm right and you're wrong. And that's actually there's a healthy way to debate. I'm good with it. I won't go too far down this road, but debate's okay. But when it turns to disdain, that's when it becomes problematic. But as evangelicals, we've really kind of focused on truth, and truth is a thing that is a value that we've kind of had pounded into us, and it's good. It's a truth's truth. And Pontius Pilate, in his "What is truth?" comment at the end of the Gospels, is kind of an interesting voice there, right? Anyway, all that to say, when we watch a secular production, it's similar to talking to somebody that we disagree with, and they're chewing on theology, they're chewing on biblical concepts in a way that I don't exactly agree with. And by the way, the Big Door Prize is actually not terribly antagonistic at all. I don't sense it being antagonistic at all. There are characters in it who are skeptical and antagonistic, but I don't sense the show is. So up through episode 4. And anyway, so we come into contact with a show where the theology doesn't agree with us. We have either that tribal instinct to just shut it off, or the truth instinct to point out what's true. And there's a whole bunch of ways that we do that. Some are good, some are not. Maybe the less good ways are shouting on Twitter about it and trying to assert how wrong somebody is. And I mean, the truth is, it's just a storyteller telling a story that matters to them. And so I don't know that there is a right or wrong for that storyteller. And in the same way that we hold truth to be kind of this key value. Anyway, so especially the kind of the Twitter yelling, whatever, gets me thinking a little bit about a friend of mine when I was telling him what I wanted to do with Real Spirituality, which is, well, when I was talking to them, and I said I wanted to work with Hollywood, not against them, they literally held their nose and said I shouldn't do it. And that made me sad. But it's more than anything, it's a good indicator that of the relationship that we have right at this moment between the American evangelical church and secular Hollywood. What we do when we hold our nose is we're creating an us versus them situation, or when we tweet angrily about Hollywood or something and make broad sweeping generalizations about something that Hollywood always does. So back to, I want to encourage this tact when we're watching a show who is maybe disagreeing with us a little bit. If they're genuinely heartfelt exploring theology in it, just listen. And with listening can come nuance and empathy. And those are two concepts that I think are really important in life as followers of Jesus to have. Nuance and empathy help us to be in relationship with everybody around us rather than separatist or splintered. So, from the stories that are being told around us, we can gain insights about where the world is. Now, this is a concept for like thousands of years. Storytellers have this really important gift of intuiting like the collective direction of a society, the fears, the opinions, the potential impact that a catalyst could have on a society. I'll give a quick example I've commented on in a TikTok video, which is there was a movie in 2010 about artificial intelligence, and the end game with artificial intelligence within that movie, at least as they were exploring it, was a loss of human intimacy. And I literally just in March of 2023 saw a video about artificial intelligence, and the real risk with AI is the loss of intimacy. And so that movie was called Her. It's by Spike Jonze. Also got content in it that's real hard to watch, but the storytellers of it really intuited something. They were sentient. They were predicting, they were seeing the direction of the future in this story. It was really, obviously it's an extreme version of it, but, and so in episode 4 of the Big Door Prize, back to my original thing that I keep coming back to, there's this very authentic and heartfelt exploration of faith. And so when I hear people want to hold their nose at Hollywood, I honestly feel a little sad. Storytellers are just interacting with us, stories that matter to them, and in a marketplace of stories and ideas. And if you don't like a particular story, you don't like a particular way that they did it, there's still a way to watch and enjoy that story and develop empathy for the storyteller. And you can still enter the marketplace of stories and ideas and compete with it and put something else out there in contrast. So I'm not dead set on every story having to be a metaphor for Jesus or an allegory or a biblical story. In this story, in this episode, they talk about the Bible. It's got skeptics. Its sexual ethics aren't the same as ours. And as most Hollywood productions, it has bad language. But in all, it's like this really beautiful, well-told story that is a reflection of the heart that God made in all humans interacting with the broken world. This is something I've always believed about stories, is that a lot of times where I find the gospel in a story isn't in the actual story, but it's in like the heart of like why the storyteller wanted to tell it. And in the broken world of the Big Door Prize, the machine knows people better than we know each other. And that's really scary. And so the negative space around that, I mean that like an art piece, like negative space. So if this microphone is positive space, the area around it is the negative space. So if the story is the microphone, the space around the story is the negative space. There's this fear in our society that we are giving away our ability to know and be known by one another to technology. And you go back to Facebook quizzes in 2008, like what Harry Potter character are you? And that's matured into, which Enneagram number are you? And which Myers-Briggs type are you? Now we have AI models that are predicting human behavior. And that stuff is, it's interesting. There's not necessarily anything wrong with it, but there's definitely a scary element. And the scary element is that we lose the ability to have intimacy and get to know one another. You go back thousands of years and we've been trying, like astrology is like the attempt to like know ourselves in a way that we can tell everybody else who we are and what we are, and we can classify people and understand our world. I'm obviously not endorsing astrology, but we long to know who we are, and we long for other people then to also know who we are. Have you ever taken like one of those quizzes and you loved the result and you just want to go tell somebody like, oh my gosh, I took this quiz and I realized that I'm this. And so that's what's going on in the Big Door Prize, is like that underlying desire to know one another and be known. That's going on in the storyline between the husband and the wife. The fact that a secular storyteller is telling a story about wanting to know people and be known by people is really, it's not surprising. That's how we've been made. That's Genesis 1. Right relationship with God, right relationship with people in a broken world. Yeah. So I cheer for it, even if some of the words don't quite match the accuracy of what I would typically like. Now, so the relationship between the main husband and the main wife, Dusty and Cass, there's like this. I think I'm only 4 episodes in, but I think there's kind of this fear of an impending breakup, like because Dusty and Cass now both have learned their potential, and there's this like that's put tension between them because their potential on this card, like it's going to be hard for them to grow together, and so their Dusty's parents got a divorce because of the machine and their potentials. And I think there's an implication in this story of like, hey, is this marriage even going to stay together? In the end of episode 4, it was so beautiful. I loved it so much in regard to that, and I'm cheering for Dusty and Cass's marriage to succeed. And I suspect, because I know how stories go, that it won't. But Dusty, at this point, is longing to surprise his wife and learn more about her. And like so he learns that she loves hot wings, and he's like, we've been married for 23 years. How do I not know this? Like, and well, she's been ordering honey, whatever wings, because that's what he likes. And he never took the time to get to know her. And so now he's trying to get to know her, and he's trying to eat hot wings to try to so like, it's actually really cool, like laying down their own wants for one another to try to improve their marriage. It's a great conversation and story to be having. And I'm thrilled that they're having it. So all the characters in this story are having their potential told to them, except for a few holdouts. And then they're displaying it. So like a few of them literally have gotten sweatshirts that like say what their potential was. And I think that's the coolest thing ever. Okay. I think it's the coolest thing ever in a storytelling sense, that like that person learns something about themselves and then wants to be known and share that with the world. And so they literally put it on a sweatshirt. It's a great storytelling device. And yeah, so, but it's a little bit unsettling still that this machine knows people's human potential. And that's kind of like, it's kind of like what Adam was going through. And like when right after he sinned, Adam and Eve both were hiding from God rather than walking with God. And I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. And like there's a vulnerability to learning your potential. Whether the machine is good or not is, it's a whole different topic. But like there's a vulnerability there, and a desire to be known even in vulnerability. This is great. This is good human stuff. So, okay, let me try to wrap this up a little bit. I'm rambling. I'm a rambler. While Hollywood is busy exploring the idea that humans want to be known by a superpower and by each other, but we're busy shunning them and picking it apart for accuracy, we're missing an opportunity to build an empathetic bridge in understanding people on this earth better. So, when I listen to a character in the Big Door Prize be angry about the Bible and the story of a virgin being sacrificed in the Bible, I don't need to correct them. They actually got the moral application correct. Even what the Bible would say when, I believe they're referencing the story in Judges where, I always forget the names, but the dad says, if you do this, God, I'll sacrifice whatever walks out my front door. And that's his daughter. And so he sacrifices his daughter. And it's not a story of what we should do. Like, it's sick. It's terrible. It's bad. The Judges was the story of everybody doing what was right in their own eyes. And so the fact that this character in this movie is upset about that story is she's totally got correct moral vision on it. She's just thrown out the baby with the bathwater because she doesn't quite understand biblical exegesis and whatever. And so that's hermeneutics. And so that's okay. We can understand what's going on in our society from that story being told, and we don't have to get it corrected and told to be accurate and nuanced the way we want it to be nuanced. So I just want to encourage us to listen and learn about who is around us. And just remember, in this episode, we had the heartfelt exploration of the calling of a priest. We had references to Jesus by name, to Scripture. We had the talk of understanding our human potential. We had the desire to be known and loved by our spouse, our parents, and our kids. We have this interesting metaphor that isn't healthy or good, but it is within the story. It's really interesting, where the machine was being compared to God, which is similar to Mrs. Davis, the show on Peacock right now, where the AI is Mrs. Davis, and the AI knows all humans' like desires and wants, and has stopped wars and famines because it's whatever. So the AI has been compared to God, and in the Big Door Prize, the machine was compared to God in episode 4. So I actually think they should have named this episode Deus Ex Machina, which is Latin for God from the machine. Greek, not Latin. Wait, oh my goodness. Don't trust me when it gets to original language. I have to look on the software. It means God from the machine, but it would be it means something different, but it actually is kind of like a different meaning of it. Anyway, the Big Door Prize, Apple TV Plus. I'm curious what you think about it. If you like the way I'm thinking about it, you're curious to hear more, I would love to have a comment. I would love to, you can like this. You could dislike it if you don't. That's cool. You could subscribe. I don't know. I'm not going to put out videos like, like every day or something. But if you have a show or a movie that you think is interesting, that explores something in the human condition or theology or depicts clergy or that you're curious about, you want to see my take on, I would love to know what it is. So far, I've watched Mrs. Davis. I've watched. I'm going to finish up Big Door Prize. I've watched. There were a couple things. I watched Her, as I talked about, and then I watched Tulsa King on Paramount Plus, and Beef on Netflix. And so some interesting shows that all have sort of interesting human condition insights. And some have differing levels of sort of kingdom interaction and clergy interaction and church interaction. All of them are just, they're hard to watch. So maybe the Big Door Prize is the least hard to watch and is kind of just the quirky, fun dramedy that, So I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think. I always say, if you ask me a short question, I'll give you a long answer. And now in this video, nobody's asked me a question, and I gave you 30 minutes of answer. So take care. Have a great day, and talk to you soon.